All right, welcome to the 35th episode of Life is Horror. This will be the vampire episode where I talk about my top 10 favorite vampire movies of all time and quiz you on the vampire subgenre of horror and review movies from this year like Sleeping Beauties, a Tubi original, red flag right there, and The Last Demeter or The Last Voyage of the Demeter, the movie that just came out back in like August to theaters, and also El Conde, a Spanish vampire movie, and also a Filipino movie called In My Mother's Skin. I believe it's an Amazon original. You can check that one out on Prime. So yeah, two vampire movies and two other movies that aren't related. So yeah, four movies in total, plus the quiz, plus my top 10. And so let's jump into the reviews. All right, so review number one. Let's talk about Sleeping Beauties. This is a Tubi original, like I said. What's it about? Let's look it up on Letterboxd here. Kaya, that's her name, gets a job as a maid working in an isolated old mansion. Pregnant and a recent widow, she is desperate to reconnect with her husband, opening a doorway to the spirit world, and in doing so, inadvertently awakens the tormented ghost of her current employer, the previous maids. This movie, I'm curious what the only 125 people have rated this on Letterboxd so far. Me being one of them. Stuart Simpson is the director, and this stars nobody you will know. I don't know why I watched it. I think I saw it advertised on what's that app called? Social media app. What's it called? Instagram. Hardly ever use it, but it was listed as an upcoming horror movie for free on Tubi, so I checked it out. I think I watched it during breaks at work, and it was horrible. I hated this fucking movie. It's so horribly made on every level. Like at least the framing and the lighting was done competently, but everything else was so horrible about it. It's incredibly dull, horribly acted. You got this old-fashioned couple that hire this pregnant, like very pregnant, like third trimester, she'll pop any second, like maid. Like, why would you hire a maid who's that pregnant? I don't get it. But I wouldn't do that. But yeah, so she's this maid. She's fleeing her house because it's haunted. Because she tried to contact her dead husband, so now he's haunting the place. And you got this wacky brother and sister who's hiring her. They're the employers, and they act very childish, very cringy as hell. Their performances, their backstory is generic, and this movie relies on brief flashbacks to develop the characters and story. The crazy sister in the final reel is all of a sudden a religious nut with a master plan to recreate the nativity scene with corpses and needs Kaya's baby to complete it, but didn't know she was pregnant when she hired her over the phone, so that's just a convenience. Like, oh, you just so happen to be pregnant. It fits with my master plan. How perfect. The lead character doesn't know how to silence her phone, which was annoying, and of course, the phone has no signal. They never do in horror movies, and she wears a sweater with the shining pattern. If you're familiar with the shining, there's like the carpet, the way that pattern is, it's like on her sweater. Um, Open music sounds like royalty free, scary carnival music, which doesn't fit the movie's theme or tone. It also opens with a maid being gunned down on an empty road saying, "You can't do this to me. I'm Amy Lee, motherfucker." Like, who the fuck is Amy Lee? By the end of the movie, that line makes no sense. Like, what's so special about Amy Lee? Why would she, like, I wouldn't say that. Could you imagine? Like, if you're about to die, you're like, "You can't gun me down. I'm Mr. Hat. You can't do this." It's so stupid. It's never explained why she's so important, why she thinks she is. CGI blood, CGI gunshots. It's horrible. Uh, yeah, they just look atrocious. There's no cell service trope here, dream sequences, all the things you don't like in a horror movie. This one checks all those boxes. It's like, fuck you, fuck you. Every 2 seconds, you're yelling at the TV. Boring lead, awful amateur dialogue. Employer has evil cartoon, like villain voice. Turns into House of a Thousand Maid Corpses when the crazy family puts on a show. like the Firefly family, just putting on this crazy show. So yeah, nothing original here. Yells at crazy. She yells at the crazy people in native tongue as if they can understand what she's saying. Uh, Crazy lady is torn apart by the ghost to save Kaya, which begs the question why they didn't just do that sooner. And then they immediately try to kill Kaya and her baby. Why? Why would they do that? I don't understand the motive of the ghost there. I don't understand why, if they had the ability to get revenge all along, why they didn't just kill this crazy brother sister incest couple. Why didn't they do this a lot sooner? I mean, come on. This movie's so horrible. Do not check it out. Next movie is In My Mother's Skin. Now, I just watched this one yesterday, and this is a Filipino or Taiwanese film, somewhere in that region. And so let me find it. All right, In My Mother's Skin. What's the plot synopsis here? Stranded in the Philippines during World War II, a young girl finds that her duty to protect her dying mother is complicated by her misplaced trust in a beguiling, flesh-eating fairy. So it's like a fairy tale. It's a dark fairy tale, kind of Hansel and Gretel ish. It's a period piece. It's slow burn Filipino fairy tale, and got large cicadas and a sick mother and a maid looking for hidden gold. So yeah, you got this whole like subplot going on with these people trying to find the gold at this house. The fairy's hideout looked pretty cool. I wasn't crazy about the look of the fairy. Um, yeah, it's on the poster there. She's got this crazy look going on. It looked a little silly, and it's just too slow. And there's nothing really exciting about it. Nothing too original here. Um, I found myself pretty bored with this one. The mom, once possessed by the cicada, makes noises similar to the kids in The Grudge, and every time she eats someone or something, she starts puking up like a small black bird, which is also in the poster there. I don't understand what that means, but whatever. The ending dragged and really dragged. The characters literally like drag their feet when they walk. They're walking so zombie-like, and like it's so deliberately slow, and like the characters' behavior at the end confused me why they were behaving that way. The dad comes home, like she thinks that her dad's dead throughout the movie, or she's in denial, like wants to believe that he's alive, but then she's told that he's dead. But you, as the audience, know that more than likely he's still alive, and they're just lying to her. So then the dad comes home at the end to find all this chaos there, and then the movie just slowly ends, and it's not very climactic. I didn't really like the ending, and there's some cool shots here and there. There's no gore, there's no scares. It very lacks intention, suspense. There's not a whole lot there. I really was not into this one. It's a fine movie, like technically, like the shots, cinematography, and I thought the little girl in this movie, the young child actress here, I thought did a good job. So at least that wasn't bad. Usually it's hard to find a good child actress or actor, and they can really bring down a film with their amateurish performances. But I thought she really delivered, and she shows a decent range, and she has some moments where she has to cry and feel really sad, and she did a good job. There's some premonitions, kids dreaming about their deaths, some haunting like dreams of like seeing themselves in the future without their heads, and then of course these things start to come true at the end. So some kids do die in this movie. So it's dark. It's a dark movie, but it's just so slow, and not a lot is actually happening. So I don't really recommend this movie. This made somebody's list. That's the reason why I watched it. So now let's talk about El Conde. This is a Spanish movie, I want to say, and I don't know where it's at on my list here. I'm trying to find it. So this is a vampire movie, and it's a period piece. I cannot find it. I can't find my notes on this movie to save my life. What the fuck? Oh, there it is. All right, here it is. What's the plot synopsis? All right, so after living for over 2 centuries, Augusto Pinochet uh, is a vampire ready to die, but the vultures around him won't let him go without one last bite. This is on Netflix, and I thought it's an artsy, very artsy. I think it's black and white. I think the whole movie is black and white. Posters black and white. And judging by the pink shades, that would tell you that this movie's got a little bit of a humorous tone to it. But it's not like a laugh a minute movie or anything. It's not. I wouldn't say this is a horror comedy. I don't remember laughing much at it at all. It's an artsy Spanish black and white vampire movie that ignores most rules of the genre, and it's narrated by a character not seen until the last act. It's a slow burn, some gore, and hearts blended in a blender to make vampire smoothies. It's got some slightly humorous moments, but not enough to say is a comedy. It's not trying to be scary either, so it's not scary or funny. It's just kind of different. It's a unique vampire movie, but like I said, very artsy, so it's not going to be for everyone. But this is another movie that's highly rated. Mainly like the film critics are loving it. So that means that usually I won't like it. I typically don't really like movies that critics love for some reason. The score is classical with many like violins and can get a tad annoying at times. The music, it's well shot, atmospheric. The nun uses an old-fashioned camera. I don't know why I wrote that down. Hmm. But yeah, she uses an old-fashioned camera. The climax is underwhelming, and not seeing the nun put up a fight was lazy. I hate that in movies when a character is just like, all right, kill me. I'm not going to do anything to protect myself. Just kill me. I hate that. Most of the film is scored than not. So, yeah, it's a very consistent soundtrack. Like, there's hardly any moments in the movie that use silence. There's just always, like, music in the background. There's no character that I really cared about or connected to in this. There's a horse. One thing that's memorable about this movie is that you see a horse get guillotined. I don't think I've ever seen that before, so that was different. Um, it's set modern day. I thought this was a period piece, but maybe that's just because it's black and white. I just instantly thought like, oh, it's old. But no, it's not. It's actually set modern day, but it doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it's a modern day film. Maybe that has to do with the environment, the setting that it's in. It's like a farm house, I believe, something like that. So it doesn't feel like you're watching a modern day film, but it is set modern day. So this one, it's above average. I give it a 3 out of 5. It's okay, but it's not something I ever see myself revisiting. This isn't my kind of vampire movie. It's a slow burn. It's not for me. But I can't deny that it's well made and slightly unique in some aspects, but just not for me. But check it out. It's on Netflix. If you have Netflix, see it. Maybe you'll like it. Next movie, the last movie will be the recent vampire movie that hit theaters, The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Now, this was directed by a guy who I'm familiar with. What's his name? I think he's like Norwegian. Andre Øvredal. Um, Now, if I remember correctly, he did scary movies to tell, or stories, scary stories to tell in the dark. And he did that found footage movie Troll, and my favorite, the Autopsy of Jane Doe. And so, yeah, this is about the crew of the merchant ship Demeter attempts to survive the ocean voyage from Carpathia to London as they are stalked each night by a merciless presence on board the ship. Now, I'm not too familiar with any of these actors in the movie. You got Corey Hawkins, names I can't pronounce, and you got Javier Botet as the vampire in this movie. Now he's an actor. He's a Spanish actor who's known in the horror genre for playing monsters because of uh, his height and his build. Like he's a very skinny, tall dude. I believe he plays the Crooked Man in Conjuring 2. He plays that weird-looking chick that you see at the very end of Wreck. So he's always playing monsters. He's like freakishly tall. He's like 7 feet, very skinny, extremely long arms. So it's perfect casting to play this type of vampire. This isn't a normal-looking vampire. Not the kind of vampire you're used to seeing where they look like normal people, but then they have fangs. This isn't like Dracula. This is like from the poster you can see this is a like monster vampire. It's got the yellow glowing eyes and wings, and it's whoops, I keep hitting my mic. Sorry. I'm sure you're gonna hear that. That's gonna be annoying. So, but yeah, so yeah, this is a different kind of vampire movie where it's more monstrous. It's not a person like Christopher Lee or you know Lugosi. This is a like monstrous vampire. And it's a visually strong, contained vampire movie with a Dracula, more creature than human, nothing like the ones in the 70s. The creature design, practical effects were fantastic. Javier Botet as Dracula was perfect choice. It feels like Alien, because it's just one setting and it's kind of like a slasher getting picked off one by one. So it kind of has the alien vibe to it. It's an old 1800s ship as the setting throughout, and the set designs. You really feel like you're there with the characters, kind of claustrophobic. Set designs were great. Cinematography, atmosphere, awesome. Visually, it's a good looking movie. They keep Dracula in the shadows mostly. There's a few cool shots of him on the deck, illuminated by lightning. So that looked pretty cool. Bear McCreary does the score. I'm a big fan of Bear McCreary's scores. He did Hellfest and the Child's Play remake and all kinds of stuff. But those are the ones that really stand out to me when I think of Bear McCreary. Those two come to mind. So he's terrific. This is another good score. Starting the movie at the end is a modern day trope I can't stand. A lot of movies nowadays, I feel like they have to start the movie at the very end so you know what to look forward to. Like, oh, this is gonna get interesting. I don't really like that. Like, why spoil where this is going? I want to be surprised. I was disappointed that there wasn't more of a on-screen carnage, so it doesn't deliver on like the carnage. You don't see the vampire like ripping out throats all the time or anything like that. The kills are repetitive outside of the head smashing scene, so you get some gore here. Ends with a teaser for more movies. The characters aren't really all that amazing. Most of them are like kind of one note cannon fodder, just meals for Dracula. I don't get why they didn't just move all the crates overboard or open them during the day. Like once they knew what was going on, that there was like something in one of these crates. I just feel like they kept cutting to night, and I'm wondering like what was happening all day. What were you guys planning? Why weren't you guys taking action sooner? Like, am I missing something? Like, why weren't these characters just constantly like, all right, one of these crates has the monster in it, so let's throw the fucking crates off the ship? Which I don't think would help much, I guess, because wouldn't the Dracula just break out of the crate eventually? Can Dracula drown? I don't know. He would fly to them anyways, but whatever. Like, try something. Open up the crates, stick a stake through his heart. Um, so yeah, what do they do all day? The captain looked too much like Captain Price in Call of Duty, so that was distracting to me. They lead you to believe no one is going to live by the end, so therefore I never got invested in anybody. And that goes back to the whole starting at the end. The movie starts at the end, and it makes you think that everyone on this ship is going to be dead by the end, so therefore you're like, all right, they're all going to die, so don't get attached to anybody because you know they're gonna die, every single one of them. I don't know. I don't like that trope. Stop starting movies at the end. It's so dumb. It doesn't always work. Some movies it might make sense if it's gonna be like misleading or something, but this I don't think was that case. It's just like okay, you're spoiling the ending. So yeah, but still a good movie visually, atmosphere, the set designs, the look of Dracula, creature effects, great, good vampire movie worth seeking out if you like the vampire subgenre. So now let's jump into my ranking of my favorite vampire movies, my top 10. So, um, I've seen now the vampire subgenre is not one that I'm very like fond of. I've never been a big vampire fan, especially the serious ones, like the romance ones, the old school ones. But I typically like mine to be goofy and actiony. It's the same way I feel about the zombie genre. I like them when they're not taking themselves so serious and not so like Romero like, because he's always making like the serious ones with slightly humorous undertones. But it's I don't like the serious ones as much, and so I've seen a total of 87 that I can recall. So here's my top 10 of the 87 horror vampire movies that I've seen. Starting off with my number 10, Blade. Now, so this one is an action vampire movie starring Wesley Snipes. When Blade's mother was bitten by a vampire during pregnancy, she did not know that she gave her son a special gift while dying. All the good vampire attributes in combination with the best human skills. Blade and his mentor battle an evil vampire rebel who plans to take over the outdated vampire council, capture Blade, and resurrect a ferocious blood god. This has Stephen Dorff in it also, and Udo Kier. And yeah, it's a very actiony vampire movie, and that's why I tend to like it more than the other ones. I mean, there's plenty of movies I could have made this list. I got plenty of honorable mentions I'll shout out later if I remember. So yeah, 10, Blade. It's my favorite of the trilogy. I thought that I think I used to like 2 a little bit more than 1, but on rewatch, I've only seen these movies twice. The trilogy, only seen them twice. There's a new movie coming out eventually by Marvel. They're supposed to be rebooting this soon, but this one's my favorite of the trilogy, and it's my number 9. So I mean 10. It's my number 10. I'm losing my mind. Number 9, What We Do in the Shadows. So this is a highly rated vampire movie, so some people might be shocked that they're seeing it at number 9 and not in the top 3 or whatever. But this is from 2014, directed by Taika Waititi, or the guy who's been doing those like Thor movies, and he stars in this one also. And so it's like a found footage like mockumentary type film. It's about vampire housemates. They try to cope with the complexities of modern life and show a newly turned hipster some of the perks of being undead. And so I've only seen this movie once, and the reason why I would say it's so low and not higher is because I didn't think it was as funny. There was a lot of overhype with this one. I went into this one hearing a lot of people talk about it like it's a masterpiece. It's like one of the best vampire comedies out there. It's so hilarious. And when I was watching it, I chuckled maybe a couple times. And I just didn't find myself as invested as everyone else, but I can't deny it's very well made. I like the premise. I like what they're going for. There's a few good gags in it. Um, I mean, the fact that like at the very end of the movie, spoiler, but like it's not really much of a spoiler. It's just like the guy when he's like dating this old woman, like he's a vampire. He looks like he's like in his mid 30s, early 40s, and he's dating this like 90-year-old woman who's not a vampire, but he's technically older than her. And he's talking about like the age gap between them. Like he's like, yeah, I'm like 500 years older than her, but we're still like we still love each other. I don't know. Like there's some good comedy in it, but it's just not as much as I was expecting due to what I was hearing about it. And like I said, it's only a one-time watch. This could go up on rewatch, but right now it's number 9, still worthy of making a top 10. Just not I'm not praising it as much as everyone else is. Number 8, Stakeland from 2010, directed by Jim Mickle. Martin was a normal teenage boy before the country collapsed in the empty pit of economic and political disaster. A vampire epidemic has swept across what is left of the nation's abandoned towns and cities, and it's up to Mr., a death dealing rogue vampire hunter, to get Martin safely north to Canada, the continent's new Eden. So, yeah, this is like a apocalyptic vampire movie. It's a road trip movie, and it's got Daniel Harris in it as well, and Nick Damishi from the werewolf movie Late Phases, playing his age in this one. He plays an old guy in Late Phases, and this one is dark. This is a dark uh, road movie, like I said, and I really liked the characters in this one, and like I actually gave a shit about a lot of these characters. I mean, this was a one-time watch. Also, a lot of these are one-time watches because, like I said, I'm not really that much into vampire movies. I don't revisit them that often. So, but yeah, this one when I watched it, I was like, wow, now that's dark and well paced, and I was really into these characters. And you don't see a lot of vampire movies like this, where it's end of days and vampires have taken over the world like this. So, high recommendation from me. Check out Stakeland. Number seven, going to the other side of the spectrum, is comedy. You know, this is not dark like Stakeland. This is the opposite. This is comedy. This is my kind of vampire movie. Blood sucking bastards, all at like a office. You know, it's like Office Space meets vampires, and it's hilarious. You got vampires that blow up, so there's a ton of blood and gore. You got the guy from Cabin in the Woods, and the plot synopsis for this is a down on his luck cubicle worker and his slacker best friend discover their new boss is a vampire who is turning their coworkers into the undead. And this also stars the actor from Cabin Fever, and it's just a lot of fun. Only seen it once again, but I had a blast with it because of the jokes. I was laughing a good amount at this, more than What We Do in the Shadows. I thought this one was funnier, and that's why it's my number seven. Number six, Afflicted, found footage vampire movie. Now, that's kind of a spoiler because when I watched this movie, I had no idea that it was a vampire movie. It turns into one like almost midway through, and it's just about this guy who's afflicted with, you know, he's got some illness, he's gonna die, so he's traveling the world. It's two friends tour of Europe takes a dark turn when one of them contracts a mysterious illness. And now you know it's a vampire illness. They race to find out what it is and how to cure it before the sickness consumes them completely. So, yeah, this movie takes some interesting turns, twists and turns, where it's like he gets infected and he's almost superhuman, and then they have fun with that and they're like filming him test out all his different abilities. And then when he's out in the sun, his skin starts to like blister, and he's like, what the fuck's going on? What illness is this? And then you find out that he got bit by this woman at a club. She turned him into a vampire. And, you know, the whole thing's found footage, like I said. So you got this friend documenting everything. And the way this movie ends, I loved it. It makes total sense. I don't know why it hasn't been done sooner. And it's for a found footage movie, there is some impressive like camera work here and stunts. It's actiony at times, and yeah, not knowing the whole vampire angle going in, that really helped also. So sorry if you didn't know that already. Spoiler, but I've heard some people say they. Sorry, I hit the mic again. I've heard some people say they saw it coming. I did not, so I really appreciated that. So high recommendation for this one also. Afflicted, if you like found footage, check out Afflicted from 2014, I want to say. Number five, top five, first time watch, a lot of fun. Bordello of Blood. This is like a Tales from the Crypt movie. You had Demon Knight and then you had Bordello of Blood. I love both of them, just about the same. I've only seen both of them once, but I rate them equally. I love them both. They're so fun. This one's got Dennis Miller, the comedian, as the lead. He's a private eye named Rafe Gutman. He's hired by repressed born again Catherine to find her missing bad boy brother, who I believe is played by Corey Feldman. And you got William Sadler in this also. And so the trail leads him to a whorehouse run by a 1,000-year-old vampire and secretly backed by Catherine's boss, televangelist Jimmy Current. So yeah, this is very goofy. This is a very goofy, over the top, bloody, gory vampire movie, and Dennis Miller is the star of this. Literally, like he's the best part, and his humor lands 90% of the time. Like every one liner out of his mouth, like I just remember laughing a good amount at this one, and that's my favorite kind of vampire movie. Like I said, it's comedic. It's got the gore. I think it's got some nudity. You know, it all takes place at a horror house, so I believe there's some nudity in this, if that's your thing. So yeah, it's very enjoyable. Very much enjoy it. Like this is 4.5 out of 5. This is officially, we're in my 9 out of 10 zone here. So number five, Bordello of Blood, first time watch, and so yeah, I look forward to watching it again. Hopefully it holds up on rewatch. Number four, Let Me In. This is a serious vampire movie, and it's a remake. So Not usually my kind of vampire movie, but there's always exceptions, and this is the exception. This is a serious vampire movie done right. And it's a remake by Matt Reeves, who did the last Batman movie, and he did Cloverfield, one of my favorite found footage movies ever. It's about a bullied young boy who befriends a young female vampire, or is she female, who lives in secrecy with her guardian. A remake of the movie Let the Right One In, which was an adaptation of a book. So this one has Chloe Grace Moretz and Richard Jenkins, who are both terrific in this. I don't think I've reviewed this movie, but this was on my top 10 of 2010, along with Stakeland. So, same year as Stakeland, two great vampire movies from that year. And this one, just visually, cinematography, the story, very unique, although it's a remake, but whatever. I think this one does it better. I've seen the remake, the original. I've seen the original once, and I think it's Norwegian, right? And I've seen this one like at least twice. And I think this one's just done better. Yeah, it's the same story, but it's a great story. And the things that they add here, I think, are better. The cop character and, just the casting here. It's set in the 80s. The soundtrack is amazing. And the older guy who's like the love interest of this little girl vampire, very creepy. Richard Jenkins, he wears like a garbage bag over his head as a mask. That wasn't in the original. So there's little things that are added here that I think are done better. And that whole pool sequence, like beautifully shot, very cool. It's just such a well-made movie. So yeah, 9 out of 10. But it's not, like I said, again, it's not my kind of vampire movie. Usually, it's very serious. So that's why it's number 4. I tend to lean more towards to the comedic ones. So my top 3 will be comedy vampire movies. So my number 3, whoops, I'm going backwards here. My number 3 is Fright Night. And this is one that I've seen a handful of times. I've seen this one like 4 or 5 times now. Uh, didn't discover this movie until late. Like 2018 was when I first watched it, reviewed it early on my channel, and I've seen it a few more times since. And then I even got to meet the cast of this movie at a New Jersey horror convention, my very first one back in August. So that was fun. I got to meet Chris Sarandon and William Ragsdale, Amanda Burse, and Stephen Jeffries, Jonathan Stark. Got to see all of them, listen to their panel, got autographs from a few of them, selfies. So that was very awesome. And when I got back from that convention, it just put me in the Fright Night mood. Rewatched it, and I loved it even more than I did before. This was always like a 4 out of 5 for me, but then after that convention, I rewatched it, and I was like, no, this is better than I remember. It's 4.5 out of 5. I love this movie. It's one of the best vampire movies. It's from Tom Holland, who directed Child's Play, one of my favorite horror movies ever made. And the movie that got me into this genre. I wouldn't be here without Tom Holland, without Child's Play. I would not be here talking about horror movies. So, plot synopsis, I'm sure you've heard of it. Nobody believes teenager Charlie Brewster when he discovers that his suave new neighbor Jerry Dandridge is a vampire. So when the bloodsucker starts stalking Charlie, he turns to has-been actor Peter Vincent, famed for portraying a ghoul hunter. Unfortunately for the would-be vampire slayers, Dangerous has set his sights on Charlie's girlfriend. So yeah, great practical effects. In Werewolf, there's a werewolf scene. You don't usually see that a whole lot in vampire movies, but that's apparently part of the lore of vampires, that they're shapeshifters, and we see evil turn into a werewolf, and that sequence is great. I remember talking to the actor about that sequence, and he recalled not having a great time filming that because that's a lot of makeup. There's a lot of different stages of makeup there, but it's all great. The poster of this movie is fucking awesome. Also, the it's very 80s. It's right in the middle of the 80s, 85, and it's a horror comedy, and I think it blends the two pretty good. It's a little cheesy here and there. It's got some 80s acting in it, but it's very fun. So, high recommendation. Check out Fright Night if you haven't already. Number 2, very new. This is from this year. When I watched this movie, I left the theater thinking, like, this might be my favorite vampire movie now. But then I rewatched my number 1, and I was like, no, I'll still give it to that one. But number 2, Renfield, this was a blast. This is probably one of the most fun I had in the theater this year. Having grown sick and tired of his centuries as Dracula's lackey, Renfield finds a new lease on life and maybe even redemption when he falls for a feisty, perennial, perennially angry, angry traffic cop Rebecca Quincy. And the stars Nicholas Holt, who's been doing a lot more movies as of late, and he's going to be in Robert Eggers' new Nosferatu next year. And you got Nicolas Cage as Dracula. Great casting there. That was awesome. And this also has William Ragsdale cameo role. I didn't even recognize him in it. Talked to him at the horror convention about it, working with Nicolas Cage. Talked about that. It was interesting to hear what he had to say. And Nicolas Cage is really good in this. Him and Nicholas Holt, just great casting. Lots of fun. Over the top violence. Really hysterical. Just a laugh a minute for me. And it's like a mob movie action film meets vampires, and you got Nicolas Cage and going through all these different stages of makeup. The makeup looks great, super gory, fast paced. It's an action film with vampires, and I love it for it. Like I said, I love these types of vampire movies when they're not so serious. I like to have a good time with vampire movies because to me, vampires, just for some reason, they're not scary to me. So I want to have fun when I watch a vampire movie. I want them to do this kind of crazy shit. Just ripping people apart. When he goes to like group meeting that you see in the trailer and he just starts just wrecking their shit, that's great stuff. So Nicolas Cage is great in this. It's one of the best movies of this year for me. Most enjoyable film of the year. So number 2, Renfield. Number 1, From Dusk Till Dawn, a movie that I wish I would have been able to see not knowing. I saw this one again very late in the game, probably around the same time I watched Fright Night, or maybe shortly after, maybe 2019 or 20. Probably, I think it was 2018 or 19 when I saw this movie for the first time, but I already knew what was up with it. So, in the title is a clue, From Dusk Till Dawn. So, but yeah, I already knew, unfortunately, and I'm jealous of people who got to see this at the theater, not knowing it was a vampire movie until the middle of the film. The first half of this movie is like a criminal, like on the road movie trying to escape to Mexico, and it's not a horror film at all until over halfway through, and it's like, holy shit, this is a vampire film, and it gets super crazy. It's written by Quentin Tarantino, one of the best writers of working today, one of the best directors. You got George Clooney playing his brother in this, and Quentin Tarantino stars in it also. And you got Harvey Keitel, Juliette Lewis, great cast, and Salma Hayek, who's sexy as hell in this, and Danny Trejo, Tom Savini has a cameo as Sex Machine. He's got a freaking cock pistol. Some very colorful characters in this. Great dialogue. Some a nice surprise in the middle if you didn't already know. And a great setting for a vampire movie. It's a vampire movie where the whole second half of the film is one location. I'm a big fan of one location movies when they're done right. This one's done excellent. All at a strip club called the Titty Twister. So yeah, you just got these two guys. They're like bank robbers. They killed some police officers. They're on the run. They hijack uh, this RV. They take this family hostage and they go to Mexico. They have like this rendezvous at a strip club. Little do they know, the strippers there, the bartenders, they're all vampires, and shit gets crazy. You got like holy water, water pistols, and not zombies, vampires blowing up. There's gore. It's crazy. It's so fucking awesome. It's my favorite vampire movie, easily. Renfield close second, and then you got Fright Night right behind that. And so yeah, like my top 4 or 5 definitely are the top 5. I can't see that changing anytime soon. These 4 or 5 movies were the best that I've seen. Like these are, From Dusk Till Dawn, Renfield, Fright Night, Let Me In, Bordello of Blood. Those are the greatest, most fun, or in Let Me In's case, just most well made. I would say Let Me In is probably the most well made on this list, but these other 4 movies in my top 5 are just the most fun I had. So, yeah, From Dusk Till Dawn, number 1. What is your top 10? Let me know in the comments below. But before we go, I gotta do this quiz real quick. So, It's time to quiz your knowledge on the vampire genre. So let's get into it. 20 questions. Here is question number 1. Let me know the answers in the comments below, but try to keep it all in one comment, please. So, question number 1. What is the name of the ball that the vampires attend at the end of What We Do in the Shadows? Question 2. Which actor had initially been cast as the interviewer in Interview with the Vampire but sadly died before production began? And feel free to pause this if you want to answer these questions. I know I'm going really quick, but you can pause the video if you want. So, question 3. Some yell and scream, some go quietly, some explode, some implode is a line from which vampire movie? Question 4. In which vampire movie does the character Caleb Colton encounter a group of traveling vampires in an RV? Question 5. What is the vampire movie 30 Days of Night based on? Question 6. Which English music star appeared as John Baylock in The Hunger? Question 7. Legendary horror star Vincent Price only ever appeared as a vampire in one feature film. What was it? Question 8. Which 2 British comedy actors are the stars of the vampire movie Lesbian Vampire Killers? Question 9. What are the names of the 2 brothers played by George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino in From Dusk Till Dawn? Question 10. Nosferatu director F.W. Murnau's skull was stolen from his grave. True or false? Question 11. Which country produced the 2 vampire films Night Watch and Day Watch? Question 12. Which early vampire movie was nearly completed? Which vampire movie was nearly completely wiped from history when a successful copyright infringement case resulted in a call for all prints of the film to be destroyed? Question 13. Which vampire movie features a girl vampire named Ellie or Eli? Probably Ellie. Question 14. What is the name of the vampire movie that Interview with the Vampire director Neil Jordan directed in 2012? Question 15. Which former model and music star appeared in Vamp as Queen Katrina? Question 16. Which vampire movie am I describing? There's a pencil, an evil best friend, a horror TV show host, some new neighbors, and a nightclub. Question 17. For a vampire-themed movie, what is particularly unusual about Vampire's Kiss from 1988? Question 18. What is the subtitle for Roman Polanski's The Fearless Vampire Killers? Question 19. In which 2010 movie does a man known only as Mr. hunt vampires with a young man called Martin? Question 20. What's the link between the Monster Squad, Blade Trinity, and Waxwork? And there you have it. Honorable mentions for my list, movies that just missed it. John Carpenter's Vampires. That used to be in my top 10 for the longest time. I still really enjoy it. A movie that some people probably won't consider a vampire movie, but I think the monsters in this movie are vampire-like, and that's Monsters from 2018. I think it's a South Korean film on Shudder. Check it out. Vampire's Kiss and Interview with the Vampire. And some older ones, Blood for Dracula and Scars of Dracula, are 2 vampire movies from the 70s that are my favorite from that decade. You had a lot of them back then, but those 2 stand out to me. And Let the Right One In, the original version of Let Me In. Blood Red Sky, that's a German vampire movie on Netflix. 30 Days of Night, and The Lost Boys. So those are my 11 through 20. The Lost Boys, yeah. I'm betting there's going to be a lot of people surprised that The Lost Boys did not make my list. I've seen it a few times, and for some reason, every time I watch it, I don't ever think it's great like everyone else. I think it's good, but I've never loved this movie like everyone else. There's just something about it. I think it's the main character, Jason Patric, and the love interest, and all that stuff. Like there's some cheesiness to it. That doesn't really work for me, but I do like the third act and the way the vampires die. It's very 80s. I love Corey Feldman and Corey Haim in it, but all the other stuff, I don't know. It just doesn't work for me as much as everyone else. Everyone loves this movie, but I think it's good, not great. So, number 20, Lost Boys. And there's so many other movies I can shout out. I mean, I got so many movies here. A movie that I know some people consider to be a masterpiece, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. I think that's like a Pakistani film. Somewhere in the Middle East. That's a black and white film from 2015. It's not a comedy. It's a very artsy, independent, slow burn vampire movie. It's good, it's well made, but it's just not my kind of movie. The Night Flyer, Stephen King's The Night Flyer, and Salem's Lot. I like those movies. Near Dark, Day Shift. It's an action vampire movie with what's his face, blanking on his name, but it's on Netflix. Check it out. Near Dark, Freaks of Nature, Jacob's Wife, Blade 2, the Fright Night remake I enjoyed, Dark House of the Shadows, Twins of Evil. Like there's tons I can shout out. I like Vamp, Sundown, and the Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. I like the Lost Boys sequel, The Thirst. I thought that one was good. I like the Fright Night sequel, part two. That one was good. Blood Relatives, Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. Like these are all okay to good vampire movies. I would recommend checking out, but just not as great as the ones I mentioned. So there you go. There's my list. What's your list? Let me know in the comments below. And so I'm not sure what the next video will be. I'll be doing a Christmas themed episode soon. So look out for that. Top 10 Christmas horror movies. That should be dropping sometime by Christmas. So look out for that. Maybe I'll do one more episode in between though. What that will be about, I don't know. But until then, adios everybody. See you next time.